Today's video is about how to prune everbearing raspberries in the spring. Now there are two types of raspberry bushes, summer bearing and fall bearing. Do you know which one is also known as everbearing? Well, if you said the fall bearing, then you are correct. Ding ding! So those are the ones that we are working with today. This video is not for the summer bearing raspberries, as I only grow the everbearing kind here. So the everbearing raspberries can be pruned for either having two crops, one in the summer and one later on in the fall, or one fall crop, one larger fall crop. And I'm going to show you both ways today so you know how to do both ways and you can decide which one works for you. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to have a green thumb, even if you weren't born with one. Let's head out to my garden.
So this is my raspberry patch, and you can see it's just really overgrown. It's in bad need of pruning, and really the best time to do this is in the spring, which it is the spring, but even before you start to see the green leaves coming out, before it starts to sprout growth. So as you can see, I'm a little bit behind, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. I'm still going to do it, but I just wanted to let you know that. So the first method is one in which you will receive two crops. And the con of that is that the pruning technique is more complicated. So especially if you have a lot of raspberry bushes, then this method might not be as appealing to you. And the pro obviously is that you get a longer harvest time. And some people say that the berries, when you do the second method, which I'll show you later on, of just getting one fall crop, are better, they're tastier and larger. So that's just something to think about as well. Basically, what you want to do for the first method for getting the two crops is that you want to remove all of the dead branches. And those will be very obvious. You can see that they're brown, they just look dead. There's no life to them. That means that they produced fruit the previous year, and so they're not going to produce fruit again. So just go ahead and take them out and trim them as close to the ground as possible. Next, what you want to do is you want to find the 4 or 5 most robust, thickest canes that you have per linear foot, and you want to keep those canes. And so decide which ones that you want and then just take out all the rest of them. Once you do that, with the 4 or 5 remaining strongest canes that you have, you just want to cut them back roughly to about 1/3 of their length. And the reason you want to do this is because the ends have already produced fruit the previous year. And so you are really just trimming down to the area where the cane is still alive. And you'll be able to tell if you did this correctly if when you cut into the cane, you'll see either it's all brown, which means you have to keep going a little bit further down the cane, or you'll see a thin ring of green. And it's pretty easy to tell the difference. And you'll sort of get an eye for it after a while. So you want to cut back those 4 or 5 remaining canes until you see the green. And then that's all there is to it. And your canes should look much more thinned out and cropped, and then they're ready to produce in both the summer and the fall of this year. Now it's time for the second method. So I'm going to show you how to prune your raspberry patch if you just want the one large fall harvest. And let me tell you all, it could not be simpler. So let's pretend I haven't done any pruning and this is just how my raspberry patch is. And it doesn't really matter either way. So all you do is you literally just prune all the canes back down as close to the ground as possible. And that is it. As you can see, this is a much simpler method than the first method, and you are going to get a large, beautiful fall crop of raspberries. So especially, as I was mentioning, if you have a large raspberry patch, I think this is probably the way to go. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the canes and I'm just kind of cutting them up and using them as mulch, as kind of a chop and drop technique. The other reason I prefer this method for my garden is because when I trim everything down to the ground, because my raspberry patch is located somewhat southern to other patches in my garden, then this allows for more sunlight. Because if I had allowed for these like 3, 4, 5 feet tall canes, it would shade out the garden a little bit, and it's also located on the west side of my garden. So by trimming everything down to the ground, these earlier crops in the spring and summer are going to get much more sunlight than they normally would. This is after I have trimmed everything down to the ground. As you can see, I have some mulch going from the canes that I chopped up, and that is it. So I'm really looking forward to having a wonderful, tasty crop of raspberries this coming fall. Now I know it might feel kind of weird to cut down everything that you can see above the ground, but I promise you that beneath the ground there's still a lot going on, and this is only about 2 weeks after I had cut everything down, and you can see that it's already starting to regenerate, and this is what it's going to yield your big, beautiful fall crop later on in the year.
Well, now you know how to prune your everbearing raspberries in the spring. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you all again soon.